If you haven't seen the changes to Streets of Wonder yet, I will say they really did carve this place up, and I have to say this is kind of unacceptable. Releasing a dungeon in a state that I think everybody expected, with trash being a major focus of that dungeon, and then like 5 or 6 weeks in, completely changing what the count and route work out as, it's just not really acceptable. And this is actually the second time they did this. They did this in season 1 with Plaguefall. There used to be these birds in the dead center of Plaguefall. Actually, I think they're still there, and we used to use them to great effect in the beginning of season 1, and then randomly in the middle of season 1 a patch came out and they were gone, and then another patch came out and they were back, and it was very, very frustrating. And this is kind of feeling like that same thing is happening right now. So let's read what they actually have to say here. Adjusted the placements and composition of non-boss enemies in several locations. Total enemy forces required to complete the dungeon on Mythic Plus has been reduced accordingly. And so you would hope that what that would mean is you would be able to pull the exact same packs that you pulled before and still have the exact same count, and that is of course not the case. And I'm going to show you why that's not the case. It's a bit ridiculous. But they make this statement that's just really weird. We are aware of the length and difficulty of Tazavesh Streets of Wonder. Our aim is to reduce the completion time of the dungeon and reduce the difficulty of several non-boss encounters. Like, first of all, what are you talking about? The length? I mean, it's not even the longest dungeon. Like, I really don't understand. Like, they should have did this to the other side a year ago, and they never changed a single thing about it. But you're going to change streets like 5 weeks into their, whatever it is, like 6 or 7 weeks into the season now. And what difficulty are we talking about here? Like, you nerf like half the trash. Why can't you just keep nerfing things? I don't understand the point of that. Like, why remove mobs? It just seems so weird. Like, if you haven't actually seen this, it's so weird. Like, this is a change that you'd expect to see in season 4. This is when I would expect to see a change like this. This is really heavy-handed. You release the dungeon in a state that everybody was aware of would be like this, right? The trash would absolutely be the focal point of this dungeon. Everybody who did any type of key would know that. And now you're like, the trash is too hard. We got to remove trash. I just really don't support that. And it's very frustrating as somebody like me I'm trying to educate people. I'm trying to help, create a baseline for people to learn and grow off. And now I have a video out there with a route that's just nonsensical. Like, wait, it's just absurd. It just doesn't work anymore. Wait till I show you what it looks like in MDT. So this kind of right side hallway area here is absolutely where is the heaviest affected. And this was a main part of the route. Now, I know a lot of people have been going left, and we'll talk about that at the end, but I do think, I still like going this way, and this is what we've been doing the whole time. The big problem with going this way has been these skulkers, okay? So, again, we'll talk about that in a bit, but count was requiring 4 skulkers, and these 3 kind of just wander into you, and it's very, very easy. I don't think it would even be possible to skip all 3 of these. But yeah, basically, they just removed a single mob from each of these packs, and I mean, it's just like, does that actually make the pack easier? It's just so strange. Like, couldn't you just reduce the health and damage of the mobs by a commensurate amount? And almost all the actual nerfs they did to the trash are all these guys, like the skulker and the wise guy and all these things. So I don't know. It seems so obvious to me. You think the trash is too hard, then why don't you nerf it like you did Necrotic Wake? We did that, and that seemed like that was transformative. You made that into one of the easiest dungeons. Now, this is actually done on the tournament realm, but I don't actually know like what the difficulty of this dungeon is actually going to be, because this is the only time I've done it, and it was a complete joke on the tournament realm. But perhaps the most, like, honestly absurd part of all of these changes is right up here. They literally just straight up removed these enforcers. These are the guys that did the big knockback, and yeah, I mean, they're pretty annoying mobs, honestly, but it's like the foundation of the dungeon was kind of because of those. Like, this area here is what it is because of those mobs. You designed the entire physical portion of this area because of these knockbacks. So now you only have a single mob in the area that needs to be pulled like that, and that doesn't even need to be pulled. I also have footage of how to skip that, but I might make a separate video on that. I'm not sure. But let's put it this way. Like, you see, I'm at 99%, and like, we did this whole route and we came here, and I did make one mistake and pulled something extra, but we are way over count. If I did this entire route, we would be like 20% over count. It's ridiculous how much more count you get now, and I'm not really sure what they thought they were doing with adjusting things like the way they did, but there's literally like just mobs missing now. So it's going to completely change how you might approach this middle area, and whether or not that's a good or bad thing for you, that'll be up to you to decide. But let's take a look at things in actual MDT to get a better representation of what is and isn't there. As soon as I saw MDT and saw what this is and what this looks like, I got really frustrated, and I knew that this was going to be an issue from the get-go, because I already had trouble planning this route. And the thing is, I think a lot of this is just because of MDT. Like, maybe this is still residual bias from the nonsense that happened with the students season 1, but it just seemed like a really poor effort put into this dungeon, and I still don't exactly know what's going on in this area. But all I can tell you is, yeah, they basically removed one of the mobs from each pack. Like, I mean, this, if you don't count the skulkers, this is literally just 2 mobs now. The patrol is 4, and then this pack is just 3. And, you know, I don't know, does that make things easier? Whatever. There's less targets, so sure, great. There's less mechanics to deal with, but yeah, then in this area is where things become really annoying. You know, there was mobs literally here that we were planning and relying on count from, and now they're gone. They're just straight up removed. And you know, that I'm not necessarily sure what that impacts in terms of total count, but obviously the route has to change. So let's take a look. I've adjusted the route and I've made a new one for you guys. So we face 2 main difficulties with the route, and that's understanding exactly what's going on in this area, but trying to make sure that we have count level for later. Prior to that, you know, this area was whatever. If we missed a skulker or 2, there was plenty of room to make up for it, and there still absolutely is. But now that this area has got so little trash in it, I don't know what the right approach is actually going to end up being. I think out of the gate right now, it still looks like, okay, we grab this guy and take him in here, then fight the mini boss alone, which is what we were doing anyway. And then instead of having to fight this pack here and pull this pack, we'll simply just pull these 2 single mobs, get the value of the here, and just move on and do bosses. Now, there was a reason I didn't do this. Actually, a few reasons. One was because there's a portal right here, and it felt like this was a good idea to try to get that portal just in case something happened while we were on the way from one of these 2 bosses to each other. But nobody ever ended up using it anyway. Everybody would just take this portal and then run all the way around, so it didn't end up ever mattering. But so when I was trying to pull that pack, I'd often run into issues because one of these mobs is a spark caster, and so if I try to pull that pack with this pack, I'd have to accurately grip, and it was quite difficult to do that because this patrol would walk all the way in between these 2 packs. So pulling this pack on its own was easy because you can simply just kind of run it off to the side, and pulling this pack on its own is easy because you can just run it off towards the Grand Menagerie area. But pulling them together was a lot harder because you basically have to cut through both of them, and in order to do that, you'd have to make sure that patrol was nowhere near you. So it's incredibly important that you understand that this still requires this skulker here, okay? This pack is still, I'm going to grab this patrol, and we are still going to get this skulker. Now, this is a decision that I had to make here. Do we want to just start skipping this patrol, which honestly, now this is the hardest pack in here by a mile, and it's very skippable. Like, you don't even need a shroud or anything like that. You can simply just wait for it to patrol and go. I don't think that's the choice, because I do think that if you're already fighting in this area, you might as well stay in it as long as you can and get as much value out as possible. And instead, we'd be adding these packs later, and that's where things got messy. So I try to add this pack and this pack, which is what I used to fight, and it's 99.5 or something like that. So then it's like, now what do we do, you know? And honestly, I think this starts to make the left side look a lot more attractive. The reason I won't be doing that, at least immediately, is because I really don't like going to this boss first. I really like using Lust on the mailroom boss. That boss seems like the one that if you have Lust up for, it could be the most ideal. The other fights, you know, all could use Lust, really. I don't really feel like there's any mechanics that it's like, man, we really want to get through those as fast as possible like I do the mailroom. So short of going left and then just doing the exact same route and going all the way back around anyway, I'm not really sure I like that right now. But we're going to see how this route works out, and I'll continue to monitor this situation. Just be aware that, you know, this is just the first glance at this. I'll publish this and then hopefully get to test it. And if any more changes are made, they'll be on the spreadsheet. But in case for some reason the skulker thing doesn't work out and you don't get him, and I do just want to show you some footage about why I'm skeptical about that. You can just get these 2 or any mobs in this area and you'll be fine. I'm sure it's not the end of the world to do something like that, even if it's not efficient. But yeah, I have this footage here of us doing this last night, and it's like the skulker's just nowhere to be found right now, and I think that's not abnormal. I'm not exactly sure, but usually the way I would guarantee that we get the skulker is just fight right on this grate thing, like this little thing that looks like a sewer grate. I would just be sitting here and the skulker would just pad into us, and if not, you know, maybe he's kind of right there and I just hit him with D&D and he walks into the D&D or something like that. But the mistake I make is I accidentally target that, and because it's busting week for the tournament realm, I accidentally aggro them with my Tazavesh trinket, which is ironic. And then we're fighting this pack, but look at this pack's almost dead now, right? and finally the Skulker comes in. So we would have potentially just missed him straight up. We would have had to sit there for probably like almost a minute, and I don't know if that's something that they changed in the dungeon. Probably not, probably just me overthinking it, but just something to keep in mind. If this Skulker, who still seems to be mismarked in MDT, does not exist for some reason, then you can simply just get 2 of the mobs that we used to get anyway, and hopefully that's gonna work out fine. Hopefully this kind of stuff's behind us, because honestly this feels exactly like the Plaguefall debacle in season 1. You know, I can't unmake the video I already made. Like, once it's posted, people watch that and they're gonna think, oh, this is the route, right? I have the spreadsheet, obviously that's where it'll be updated, so always make sure you're checking the spreadsheet. But hopefully this is over now. We're not going to be doing any ridiculous changes for the rest of Shadowlands, and hopefully they can learn from this, because honestly, like, you know, I have to say, like, if they did this in the middle of a season like this, it really just shows how fucking clueless they are when making these dungeons. Like, it's actually kind of crazy, right? Like, I think everybody and their brother expected this dungeon's trash to be a problem, even like in season 2 when it was first introduced in Mythic 0. That was always going to be the issue, and for me, the dungeon's difficulty and length had nothing to do with the trash. Like, the problem is it's so freaking tight because of all this RP. There's probably like at least 3+ minutes of RP in this dungeon. The Miza's Oasis area is honestly just completely counterproductive for a timed run, and honestly so is that market area where you have to run around and you get 0 count from doing that. Now I get it, you have to have 0 count there because otherwise people would just farm 100% of the count they needed in that area and then skip everything else like people used to do in the Scarlet dungeons back in MOP. But it's just so obvious, right? Like, I mean, let's hope that they can learn from this and we don't have to keep dealing with this, because very frustrating to have to adjust a route, even like as an individual player, but somebody like me who's trying to help people learn and potentially use as a baseline for learning, it's just really unacceptable. But anyway, hope that this does help. Let me know if you guys have any other suggestions. If you've done this key a bunch already, then please do weigh in. Otherwise, we'll be taking a look at this hopefully more in the coming weeks on stream, and we'll continue to iterate. So thank you for watching. We will see you guys in the next video.